Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees for July 24th, 2023. And we will open with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Arlene, can you do roll call, please?
John Aldred,
Here.
Francis Bach,
Here.
David Catalano, Ben Dollinger,
Here.
Tim Garneau,
Here.
Jim Grimes,
Yes.
Mike Martinson, Susan LeBrook-Heber, and Bill Taylor.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with public comment. Matt, is there anybody on the phone lines?
You have 0 callers on the line. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I guess we'll start with Scott Deviner.
Thank you. Sure.
You're welcome.
My name is Scott O'Brien. I work at InterScience Research Associates in Southampton. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owners of it's commonly referred to as the Rayner parcels, 85 and 93 West End Road. They're each under separate ownerships as LLCs. However, for simplicity, they're the Rayner properties. I'm here tonight because 9 out of the last 12 years, we've done dune restorations on these properties. And it was suggested to me about 7 or 8 months or so ago by the trustees that because of the frequency of the dune restorations that we do, and the positive comments that we have received following each dune restoration, that perhaps the trustees would consider issuing a long-term permit for the sites. Right now, the trustees, basically every year, I come to you in either November, December, or January, and ask for dune restoration approval to take place prior to the enactment of the protected shorebird deadline come March 30th. So it's always a little bit of a scramble to get it done and get all the approvals done. Fortunately, the DEC has given us a 10-year permit to do this, which makes it simpler. It takes 1 out of the 3 out of the equation. If the town trustees would be willing to, I asked for a 5-year permit. I thought maybe 10 years right off the bat would be a little greedy. So let's try 5 years and see how it goes. The village still will only issue a 6-month permit. So I still have to go after the village every time we need to get this done. I'll go through this really fast. This is simply, can I stand on the other side?
Sure.
It's simply an air photo, fairly current.
Here's the mic.
That's a microphone?
That's a microphone.
Awesome. This is simply an air photo of the site. This is where the access typically comes from. So the sand comes down here. It's about a half mile. And these are the 2 sites that get restored. This is the same plan that you guys have essentially approved 9 out of the last 12 years. Nothing has changed. The dimensions have changed, the quantities haven't changed. The areas of the restoration haven't changed. It's all the same. The only thing that has changed is that we're now asking approval from 2024 to 2028, 5 years. That's it. That's the biggest change. I've been personally working on this site since prior to 2012. So I've done every single one of the restorations.
We're all pretty familiar with it.
Yeah.
Scott, can I ask, what were the other 3 years? What happened during those 3 years?
Didn't need it.
Didn't need it. Got it.
Didn't need it.
Okay.
I can even tell you which one of those years they were.
So if it's not needed, we're not going to do it under this 5-year policy.
In 2012, we did it. 2013, we did it. 2014, we did not have to do it. 15, we did it. 16, we did it. 17 and 18, we didn't have to do it. 19, we did it. 2020, we did it. 21, we did it. 22, we did it. And just this past March, 23, we did it again. Each time, we use a different volume of sand. This past year, we didn't have to use any sand. It was just basically beach grass planting and snow fence. That's a rarity. Most of the time, we have to put down some sort of clean sand. It's almost without question.
When you come to us for a permit every year, by the amount of sand that you know?
No, because a lot of
Hey,
the
guys. Would I be able to make a comment here?
If John asked the question, we'll just get the answer and then you can comment if you don't mind, Jim.
Can I answer
Yeah.
John's question?
Yes.
Okay, John asked the question, can we specify the volume of sand? The answer is sometimes we do when the erosion has already taken place, but sometimes we have to submit the application form so far ahead of time that we have to submit in anticipation of need. So that's why we say up to 3,625 cubic yards for this parcel and up to 6,325 for this parcel. It always changes. It always changes.
And that's a max.
Yes, exactly. Because some years it looks like this. This is right after Hurricane Sandy, January 2013. I actually think Irene the year before was worse, except I couldn't find those photos. This is essentially the worst it gets.
Yeah, this job has been well done.
So many
Every
different
time.
times, under different contractors too,
I'm
which
sure
is
this-
probably a credit to,
Jim wants to comment.
pardon?
Jim wants to
Jim
comment.
wanted to make a comment.
Jim?
Thank you, Francis. Hey, what I do want to point out here, this applicant has, as Scott has described, has been before us many, many times. Their paperwork has always been in order. John, to answer your question, as far as a quantitative amount that goes into this project every year, it typically ranges around that 6,000 to 7,000 cubic yards on a bad year. Okay, and where does that sand come from? That sand comes from our dredging operations in Georgia. Okay, so this is, I don't want to describe it as a quid pro quo, but this homeowner has been probably the single biggest customer for sand as part of our dredging. This request for a 5-year permit that would more closely align with the DEC permits is not really out of line with what we have already done on some other permits, specifically in 3 Mile Harbor. That said, unless there's a lot of discussion that we want to do, I would make a motion to approve this to align with the
But personally, I'd like to see Scott go through his presentation, so.
I only have one more sheet, but I appreciate what Jim just said. And I wasn't,
I've looked at this job myself every year since before 2013. And, let's have our discussion, but I'd be glad to.
one more
second
sheet,
Jim's motion.
and then if we can get back to Jim's request, all right, so in your mind's eye, keep make a mental note of each of the viewing angles from each of these photos. This is what it is now. Same angle. And it actually looks a little bit better because it's gotten greener.
That's great. I'm down there every day.
Pardon?
I'm down there every day and
Yeah.
it's great. I'm always impressed by the work.
So
you guys are doing.
that's almost as worse as it gets. I'm not going to say this is what the best it gets because it certainly gets lusher and greener. This has only been planted now for 3 months. Hopefully it stays that way.
Where's 93 start?
Pardon me?
93? The property, 93?
And this is,
No, not the year, the address. The street.
93 is the one that's further to the west.
Yes.
This is 85.
Is that, and the one on the right, is that just all 85 to the western part of the photo? Can you see 93 at all in that
I
photo?
have pictures of 93 if you'd like. I've made,
Well, I think the line's right around.
The edge? Okay, I didn't know if it started by the stairs or it was further
The snow is further
west. Okay. And then why do you guys do a dune restoration on the, it's basically just a dune, it looks like, right? At the
what
tip
was
of
the
it.
question?
Why do they even do a dune restoration at the end of the property for 93?
We typically
Stop.
my proposed plan shows it stopping before the groin. If there's a 2 or 3 foot escarpment right here, that's a lot. The erosion typically does not continue down to the inlet. This is right in here, right at the end of the revetment is where it gets hit really bad. And it gets scalloped out here significantly. Granted, this revetment was built in 1993. If this revetment were built today, it would have a return here. And it wouldn't prevent the end effect erosion, but it would at least protect it from being undermined on the house, on the side of the house. Let me show you some photos. Yeah. So you asked me for photos for 93. Here we are. These were taken July 12th. And they're pretty green. I have equivalent photos for 85 if you want to see them. Would you like, Trustee Attorney, would you like a copy?
Yes, please, if you have it. If not,
Guys, 93 a buildable lot?
Pardon?
Is it a buildable lot?
93 is actually buildable, and I'll show you where. See that house right there?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's why 93 West End Road is called the Pond House LLC. So could there be a house there at some juncture right there? Probably, but it would come at the expense of that. No, there's no plans
Yeah,
for that.
I was just curious.
Anybody have any more questions?
Would you like the equivalent set of photos for 85?
I think yeah, that's okay. That's the crusty one.
We're good.
You're good? You're good.
Jim?
You made the
We still
motion.
away yet?
Bill second?
You already made
We all
you
done?
already made a motion?
Jim made a motion, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
5 years?
5 years.
Okay, so as I said in my letter, all the conditions, as if this were a 1-year permit, in my opinion, still apply. I will give you 48 hours written notice before we do it. And then when it's done, you'll get notated photos. If we do place additional sand on the site and the topo is obviously different, we'll give you an as-built survey as well. This year, we didn't put any sand on the site, so no, there was no need for an as-built survey. So I just submitted photos. So, thank you. Thank you for your vote.
We're good for now. Maybe we can make this all coordinate with the 10-year plan next time.
Yeah, that's 5 years from now.
I know,
It's,
some young guys gotta think.
with a little luck, we'll all be here. If you can get the village to bite a little, 6 months, I mean, that would be even better, but you know what? 2 of the 3 isn't bad. It's always a little bit of a scramble to get this done before March 30th.
Everybody has their own issues.
So you'll get your notice and, off we go.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Thanks so much, Scott.
Hey, Scott,
Thanks, Scott.
real quick. You mentioned the Irene year is obviously really bad with those photos, but in a normal year, how much of this do you actually lose? How much of it are you replenishing in a standard year that requires?
In cubic yards?
Just like visually, like do you lose all of that?
Yeah, pretty much.
You do.
Yeah, you'd be shocked. It's sometimes the escarpment, it can easily come back halfway easily. We can't get down. But there's steps here. The steps often are gone. And we have no way to get down onto the beach. There is a village access right here along the side here. Sometimes that's even too steep to negotiate. So sometimes I just walk down from the village parking area about half mile to the east.
Thank you.
And when it is completely dredged out, it's just rocks. Is that an opportunity to put more rocks down? Does that ever come up?
More rocks where?
Just
Here?
anywhere when they're exposed.
It's been discussed.
That's a different permit, Ben.
Yeah, I know.
It's
curious.
Relax.
the client, the owner would love additional rocks. And it's something that we've discussed. The Town Natural Resources Department has a no new shoreline hardening policy, which I believe would be an impediment to the additional rocks.
Well, Scott, would that be additional rocks or would that come under the heading of rebuilding a pre-existing revetment?
Say that again, Jim?
Would not that be under the heading of rebuilding a pre-existing non-conforming revetment, which is done and done on some regularity?
Similar maybe to approving a bulkhead rebuild 18
Precisely.
higher.
Where the rocks are right now, but rebuilding it to the point that they're higher?
Yes.
So what you're asking for is.
We're not asking for anything.
We discuss it.
For the most part,
I guess, yeah, if the existing revetment were to be elevated
Yeah.
slightly,
right.
would that natural resources restriction apply? Is the question, I think.
I am not certain of that answer. I know it has been built. Another level has been added to this already. That was before my time. So it was lower, and then it became taller. Well, granted, there's probably double it down below grade right now.
So it stood up to sand.
Rocks.
If it were possible to extend the revetment and make it taller,
And put a return, yeah,
our client would love it.
makes sense.
The regulatory process to do that,
It would probably be something you'd be discussing after a severe
it's
weather
been,
event. Yeah.
it's been discussed for many years. We still would
Yeah.
have to put sand over it. You know, we would still
You would still,
need to
yeah.
do,
It would still look the same when you
we
were
would
done.
still need to do that.
It'd still look like that.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for your consideration of this.
Yep.
And we'll keep talking.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to 60 Harborview Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-57-6-2. Peter Mendelman for emergency bulkhead replacement.
Yeah, we discussed this last meeting in the context of possible permeable reactive barrier being installed behind this bulkhead. But Peter might be here tonight. I guess he able to come. But it's basically as we discussed, it's a rebuild of a failing bulkhead. They do it in place in kind. The only change would be to elevate it 1 foot to meet the elevation of the Harbor Marina bulkhead next door. Everything else would be as is. So I'm not going to vote on this because PRB project will be coming before the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee for a vote to fund it. I'm on that committee and I would vote on that. So I'm going to keep myself from this.
Are they two separate?
I talked to Chris and he felt it would be at least, wise to vote on one or the other. Not for me to vote on.
Barrier is actually up there.
Yeah, I was down in
Just
John, and as far as replacing the bulkhead, it's a no-brainer. It's just a permit we should issue. The matter of the barriers, it'd be wonderful if it could happen at the same time, but the bulkhead job just taken by itself is something we should definitely permit.
The only thing I would ask is that when the permit is written, if it's approved, the permit is written, there'd be language in the permit that bulkhead be built in such a way that it would accommodate PRB behind it, which in effect means that below grade, the sheet piling would have to have perforations in it to allow the groundwater to continue its flow through the PRB and then through the bulkhead below grade, the bulkhead sheeting below grade. I don't think we have to get that specific, but just there should be some language acknowledging that the bulkhead can be built to accommodate the PRD if this all works out.
When do they intend to start construction on this?
Joe Peter would like to get going as soon as he possibly can. He still has to get natural resource special permit. Probably can get it administratively. And I think he's also working under a general DEC permit for rebuilding bulkheads, which will be a quick turnaround. And I know he wants to do it this way. And, you know, PRB, it's got to be approved, funding. That won't be even applied for until August. So that, if it's approved, or if it's recommended for funding by the committee, have to go to the town board for final approval. That's probably some kind of an early fall, September, maybe early October approval.
There's been no controversy about those projects, right? It's no negative.
It's just a matter of, whether, how much money there is, whether the committee feels it's a priority project.
Except for weight against everything else. But as far as replacing bulkhead, it's definitely a candidate for
No, you're not. You're ready to see if someone else will.
I'll make a motion to,
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Peter's watching.
And John recuses himself. New business, Susan's not here. She wants to talk about the clam contest next meeting. Suffolk County Water Quality Restoration Act. She had sent out a letter in support of that. I think we'll help anyone supposed to. Jim, did you have any comments on that letter that you want to make? Or?
The only the spirit of the letter, I'm 100% in favor of. The concern I always have, and this has been the issue with sales tax from the very beginning, is it's a little bit like Jack and the Beanstalk. We're always friggin' buying beans, but we're not buying the beans we said we were going to buy with the money. What I think would be sad is if the language in this bill is weak and allows a loophole for this money to be spent for other things, such as giving our elected officials raises, buying paper clips, things like that. And unfortunately, that's been an issue with sales tax from the beginning.
Did you read the bill, Jim?
No, I did not receive the bill.
Susan sent it.
But you sent it earlier today.
Okay, I didn't. I looked in my emails before I got on tonight. I didn't see it.
I can forward it to you again.
it might have come from the council person's,
From Susan.
was it from Susan or was it from Bridget?
Well, from Bridget to Susan too.
Okay.
She forwarded it.
It was it was extensive language. And I did notice language in it that was specific to what was going to be funded by this. So I didn't scrutinize it. These things make my eyes glaze over, but
Okay, I didn't see it. And like I said, I do like the idea of it. But again, it's one of those things. I felt like we were being asked to sign on to something that we weren't seeing the whole package.
Well, one of the things that was mentioned in it is it's going to be a public hearing at the county legislature's building on, I think it's July 25th. it's going to be open to the public for comment on the bill.
Okay. Anyway, I believe she got enough support where the letter was submitted. Non-compliant mooring issue. Jim, you and I had spoken about that. I just thought that made sense that the board actually vote on this, since we're talking about rescinding a permit that was issued. You want to discuss it?
I'm sorry, Francis, you cut out at the beginning.
Okay. Non-compliant mooring issue. That's the one.
This is you're talking about in Georgia Pond?
Georgia Pond, yes.
Okay.
You and I had a discussion about it, and I felt that the board should have that discussion, since we're talking about the possibility of actually rescinding a permit that was issued by the board.
All right. Some of you guys may or may not be aware of this. The heavy rain that we had a week ago, Sunday, resulted in the research boat, which was a little Boston whaler that was moored over in Georgia Cove, sinking at its mooring, half flipping over. And a couple things came up when I got the pictures initially from Sarah Davidson. What was in the picture was probably a 25 or 30 horse engine on this boat. The permit that was issued was typical to our permits, no more than a 10 horse motor. I am under the understanding that the 30 horse motor was not being used, that this was that there was an electric motor that was being used to propel the vessel. I had real concerns because, here's a situation to me that demonstrated perhaps we should not have issued a permit for a mooring in this situation, given the fact that the owner of the boat hadn't secured this thing or kept an eye on it enough to keep it from sinking and flipping over. I think it certainly presented at the very least, an embarrassment to our board and the potential for some real environmental issues. I don't have a problem with the research going on in Georgia Pond. I very much support that. But I think given the circumstances, I think it might be better for the people doing the work in there to put the boat in and take the boat out as they're using it. Okay, because to me it read somebody that's trying to do something from way too far from home. We all knew we were going to get the rain that came that Sunday. It would have behooved the owner of that boat to come out and check on
it. I've never heard of mooring permit being rescinded because a boat sank. And I've seen boats sink at moorings in blows. I just wonder if, not allowing them to moor is maybe more than we really have to do. I mean, I certainly don't want to see the boat in there with a gasoline engine on it at all, or any fluids in it at all. But I don't know. I would rather specify that, allow them to keep moored there with no motor.
The engine's not going to blow. The only thing that should be allowed there is a 10 horse electric motor. No.
Well, we do allow gas engines in there, guys, with a special permit from the town. That's been allowed. But the issue that we have with this particular case is there didn't seem to be any oversight or care being given to this vessel. And
we also did not issue that special permit for the gas engine for this boat. That does not exist.
Can we offer them a place
Okay.
to keep a small boat like that on a
No,
trailer?
Jim, I'm just saying that it's actually in the water. It's non-compliant in the water,
Okay, so,
What is?
the boat, because it does not have a special permit for a gas engine, period.
Yeah, it shouldn't have that, it should have taken the big end, the gas
I
engine.
saw a permit from the town, I guess.
For gas, for 30
For
horse
that
gas
out of
engine,
30 horse, no more than 10 horse.
okay, but it has 30, so it's non-compliant.
I don't know. Hey, guys, I'm not exactly sure what the horsepower was. It was a much bigger engine than a 10 horse.
Bigger than 10, yeah, no, I agree with that.
You know, and the other thing, listen, I reacted a little bit to this because, you know, when this happened, we weren't notified of this. We found out about this third hand, and it was only addressed by the owners so that, you know, immediately Cornell passed the buck to Ron Paulson, said that he handles this, it's his boat. And ultimately, Ron did get the boat out of there before noon the next day. But I don't believe, and Allison's on here, I don't think we got any calls or anything from those guys.
We got a call from Ron. I heard from Ron after I heard from a resident of Georgia. He did call, but that was after he spoke with you.
Okay. Hey, guys, my thought was this is one of those things for the work that's being done in there. The safest thing for the pond, the safest thing from a liability standpoint for our board is launch the boat and take the boat out as it's being used. That was my intention here.
So he's saying. It's nowhere.
Well, you have issued a mooring permit, correct?
We issued the warrant.
We rescinded the issue. It didn't.
If there's anything that says we can't, but if that's what we want to do.
It's easy enough to launch. Jim, can you launch that boat in the pond somewhere?
Yeah, they were launching it right in Georgia Cove, I believe.
Where are they gonna store it?
He's gonna carry it back and forth, but there's no place there to leave it.
There's tons of fields there. There's people. There's
I
all.
mean, you have to just,
Yeah.
what about on the property itself? Does the Nature Conservancy have a property or a place to leave it?
Now, the property there that's village property. I mean, could they store the boat over at the village barn, in the village barn? Possibly. But they would have to make arrangements or something like that.
Guys, I would say we could simplify this a little bit. We're halfway through the season. Could issue them a warning, boat's not to go back in unless it's compliant with the 10 horsepower motor. And then reconsider whether or not you're going to issue the permit on it. So I think we can pretty easily just do the warning and make sure they don't launch it again without the compliant motor and address it for next year. I mean, we're almost halfway there right now.
That sounds like a good way to do. Just make sure that, it's not to be any fuel.
Yeah, it's their first time offense with this. They got it out the next morning.
Can we,
I think I would agree with that.
I would also like to add that if they see a storm coming, the boat should be removed. For instance, August 6th, I see a big storm coming. It's a long ways out, maybe it won't happen, but my boats are coming out of the water for August 6th. It's hard to sink a Boston whaler, but that's not a Boston whaler, that's more like a Carolina skiff.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I agree. I would agree with that. And I would agree that, also suggest, as Mike did, that, you take the boat out if there's an impending storm.
And that Sunday rain event was forecast. It didn't come out. It didn't come out as a surprise.
Oh, the forecast for worse than what we got.
A lot of rain.
Well, no, it was bad weather.
Yeah.
7 inches.
Good dumping.
So we issue them a warning.
And require the removal of the engine.
Removal of the engine.
I would go along with that.
And I'll work with Allison to come up with a warning letter.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
I
Great, thank you.
did now.
All right, old business, mosquito larvae counts on New Moon.
Yeah, Edwina and I went out again last Tuesday. And right after the big rain. And there were a bazillion mosquitoes, larvae and adults. So it turns out that, and
That's after spraying?
well, yeah, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
It turns out that they weren't able to spray after the previous moon. They had planned to, but the helicopter couldn't fly because of fog, so they didn't wind up spraying. That was probably the reason for the adults, according to Tom. So they did schedule spraying for this past week. So go out again next week for the full moon.
Committee reports, 3 Mile Harbor, 85 Oyster Shores Road, map number 300-92-2-43, First Coastal, request to close out permit T622 for dock reconstruction.
Okay, I took a look at this dock, and it's a bit of a story for this. This dock, this is the only dock I've come across that has actual legal covenants and restrictions attached to it, which specify the construction of the dock, among other things. Refer to plans that were submitted back in 2008. I noticed some discrepancies between the plans and the construction of the dock. And I went back to the file and looked a little deeper into it, and turns out that back when this was originally permitted, some around 2008, by the trustees, by the CBA, it's a building permit issued. All the agencies, the trustees, the planning department, and the building inspector signed off on the dock, basically as I saw it constructed. The original plans called for the dock to be supported by 4 pilings. It was constructed with 6. The plans called for the pilings to be maximum 4-inch galvanized pipe. The pilings that were installed were nominal 4-inch wood pilings. So because this thing was so scrutinized at the time, and the restrictions included the construction details, first I was not sure what to do, and consulted with Chris about it. It was thinking of going one way, but when I realized that it was basically modified originally and signed off on then, we'll sign off on it now. So we'll make a motion that we sign off on this.
Second.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to administrative and payment of the bills. Distributing materials, $300, sand replacement at Mile Hill Road, East Hampton Marina, $156.80 for fuel. East Hampton Star, $50.76 for classified ads. Montauk Anglers Club and Marina, $931.54 for an oil change and minor work in parts. Montauk Marine Basin, $468.13 for fuel. Riverhead Building Supply, $143.56 for pump out supplies and signage supplies. East Hampton Business Services, $27, historic fair poster. And that would be it on the bills. Have a motion to
I'd like to
pay.
make a motion to pay the bills.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded that?
Anyone opposed? All right, we have minutes from the meeting of July 10th. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at them.
I did. I thought they were fine.
We'll just made a couple of comments to Allison. I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes. July 10th.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, before we close, does anybody else have anything they want to discuss?
Air conditioning?
Your air conditioning's supposed to be
Does anybody
repaired
check the
tomorrow.
thermostat? The meeting is gonna be over before they fix the air conditioning.
Yes, yes. Anything else?
Close.
Motion to close? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.